Let's take a quick look at the Oregon Ducks coaching staff and just where the roster kind of shakes up right now post spring ball and just our overall thoughts on the team and where the program is at. So Dan Lanning heads into year 4 as the head man there in Eugene. 35-6 overall record and 3 full years coached. Won the Big Ten their first year in it. Obviously, the college football playoff did not go the way they wanted. Number 1 overall seed, undefeated, and then just got absolutely ran out of the building in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. But this team, while they lost a lot, just like Ohio State did, just like Texas did, they've got a lot of really good players still there, and they still have a chance to win a national title this season. So heading into a look at the offense, Will Stein, heading into year 3 as the offensive coordinator at Oregon. Brilliant coach, only 35 years old. Like I said, year 3, he's been with Lanning for a while now. They've worked with 3 different quarterbacks, Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel, and now what's most likely going to be Dante Moore as the starter. Really good coach. Probably going to be a head coach within the next few years here. Running back coach Rashad Samples heading into year 2 in Eugene. Again, another young coach, 30 years of age. Keep going down the list. Wide receiver coach Ross Douglas, first year there at Oregon. Another guy who's really young, 30 years of age. Tight end coach Drew Mehringer, year 4. So he's been with Lanning the entire time he's been at Oregon. Another young coach, 37 years old. And then going over to the offensive line coach, Alik Terry, year 3 for him as the offensive line coach. In 19 and 20, he was a grad assistant at Oregon. But overall, this entire staff is really young. You don't really see this around college football at programs that are, year in, year out in the top 10, top 15. I think Lanning, being a young guy himself, really wants that youth in the room, a lot of new ideas. He doesn't want to, a lot of times older coaches have a way of doing things and they're not as open to trying out different schemes or different ideas. He wants new ideas every single day, all the time, and he's going to get that with this staff. So going into the depth chart, Dante Moore is going to be your starter, 99% sure. Redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 210 pounds, was a really good recruit coming out of high school. Went to UCLA his freshman year. Obviously now he's transferred to Oregon. Backup, probably going to be Austin Novosad, another redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 205. 2 pretty good quarterbacks right there. Obviously Dylan Gabriel's gone to the NFL. Dylan Gabriel, one of the most experienced and accomplished college football quarterbacks of all time when you look at statistics, and they're going to need to replace that. So going to the running back room, no more Jordan James. Jordan James off to the NFL, but they did go in the transfer portal and get Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, one of the better running backs in the transfer portal. Redshirt junior, 5'11", 210 pounds, really good player. And then backing him up or sharing snaps with him, it's Noah Whittington, redshirt senior, 5'8", 200 pounds, transferred from Western Kentucky a few years back. Really solid duo there at running back. Not some guys that are just bruisers that you're going to run straight up the A-gap, but they can do it all. They can catch passes out of the backfield, they can pass block, and they can get the edge and get you some really nice runs. To the wide receiver room, Tej Johnson gone, but you still have Evan Stewart, who was unfortunately hurt and couldn't play in that Rose Bowl against Ohio State, but man, has he had some really bright moments since he's gotten to Oregon. 6 foot, 180 pounds. I think he's going to be one of the top 5 receivers in the country this year, and that's going to be big time for a first-year starter. Well, I guess Dante started at UCLA, but that's going to be a big weapon for Dante Moore to have, just to be able to go, oh, there's my X factor, get the ball to Evan Stewart. Also in that room, Justice Lowe, redshirt junior, 6'1", 185. Gary Bryant, redshirt senior, 5'11", 180. And then I think a name that a lot of people are excited to see get on the field is DeCorian Moore, the 5th overall recruit of this past recruiting cycle. Freshman, 5'11", 180 pounds, probably going to be your starting slot receiver. He's going to be a beast. Going over to the tight end room, you lose Ferguson, you lose Herbert, but you've got a really good 1-2 tandem here with Kenyon Sadiq, who I think is the most athletic tight end in college football. Junior, third-year guy, 6'3", 245 pounds. You can line him up anywhere and really do anything with him. Knowing Will Stein, they're going to get really creative with him, and that'll be exciting to see. Also, Jamari Johnson, redshirt sophomore, transfer from Louisville, 6'5", 265 pounds, big physical tight end. So you got a guy who's an athletic freak, and you got a guy who is just absolutely massive. So two guys that you can do a lot of different things with. Really good tight end room there, despite losing Ferguson and Herbert. The offensive line looks like you're going to have 3 transfers be starters. Obviously, you lose Connerly and Cornelius at offensive tackle, but you bring in Isaiah World from Nevada, 6'8", 310-pound redshirt senior. Was one of the top linemen in the transfer portal. Oregon went and scooped him up. Going to be a really good player for them. You've got to feel good about him blocking out there on the edge for Dante Moore. Another transfer and expected to start at left guard, Emmanuel Pregnon, transferred in from USC. 5th year, 6'5", 320. Going to the center position, Ayupani Lalulu. Hope I've said that right. Junior, 6'2", 235. Right guard, Matthew Bedford, who I know has dealt with a lot of injury problems. Don't know if he's going to start. It's just projected at the moment. Redshirt senior, 6'6", 315. And then right tackle, another transfer, Alex Hackey, 6'6", 335 pounds from Texas State. So this entire offensive line, you look at World, 5th-year player, 6'8", 310. Pregnon, 5th-year player, 6'5", 320. Lalulu, 6'2", 325. Bedford, 5th-year player, 6'6", 315. Hackey, 5th-year player, 6'6", 335. This offensive line has experience. They have size. All they got to get is the chemistry and the gel, and knowing Dan Lanning and just, how Oregon's been operating and the new scope of college football, you have to gel fast. I don't think they'll have any issue with that. I think they'll be one of the better offensive lines in the country. A lot of size, a lot of experience. But yeah, overall, just how are they going to replace Gabriel? How are they going to replace James, Johnson, Ferguson, Connerly, Cornelius? Got a lot of really good playmakers, brought a lot of guys in from the portal. This is going to be a great offense, and knowing Will Stein and how creative he is, they're going to be just fine. Heading over to the defensive side of the ball, probably the bigger concern out of the two for the Oregon faithful. Tosh Lapoy, heading into year 4. He's been with Lanning ever since he got to Eugene. A year ago, when the lights were brightest, things didn't go well, and you hear a lot of people saying it's on Lapoy, it's on Tosh. The secondary really didn't have that much size, and they didn't have anyone that was really an X factor. That's going to change this year with how they recruited, how they worked in the portal, the younger guys that are heading into year 2 that are going to see a lot more snaps. Everything's going to be okay. Tosh runs a really tight ship, and he does a really good job of coaching those guys up. I don't want one game to just shape my opinion on a coach for forever. I think they'll figure a lot of things out, and I don't think we'll ever see a performance like that again. Defensive line coach, Tony Tuioti, heading into year 4 as well. In 19 and 21, he was the defensive line coach. From 19 to 21, he was the defensive line coach at Nebraska, left to come to Eugene to coach with Dan Lanning and Tosh Lapoy. A lot of chemistry there. Linebacker coach, Brian Michalowski, year 2 for him, was at Oregon State previously. Defensive back coach, Chris Hampton, year 3 for him in Eugene. Another young coach, 39 years old. And then the nickel coach, Joe Lurig, year 4 for him. From 2019 to 2021, he was at Penn State, decided to come to Eugene to coach with Lanning. Looking at the depth chart, I don't want to get too into the weeds, just going to kind of go with who is most likely going to be the starters, because there's a lot of guys on this defense that are going to see a lot of snaps. Defensive tackle, Amori Washington and Bear Alexander. Washington is a junior, 6'3", 320. Bear Alexander transferred in from USC. There's been a lot of drama with him. I think Lanning and Lupoi are going to settle him down. Everything seems to be sailing smoothly at the moment. So not too much to worry about there, but 6'3", 315 pounds. I think they're going to get the most out of them. The edge room, Oregon might just have the best edge room in the country. Maybe you could say Texas with Burke and Simmons and Moore and all the guys they got down there in Austin. But Mateo Uiagalelei, going to be a first or second rounder going into his third year college ball, 6'5", 270 pounds. Tatum Tuioti, heading into his third year as well, 6'3", 255. And then Elijah Rushing, who was a phenomenal recruit, going into his second year of college ball, 6'5", 255. And I could keep going on about the defensive tackles and the edge guys, and we could be here for a while, but just the top-end talent they have in that room looking really, really good. I know they lost Derek Harmon. I know they lost Jordan Birch, but they got some dudes in that room. Going to the linebacker position, probably what I would say might be the weakest part of the defense at the moment. If someone wants to dispute that with me, that's fine. But Bryce Betcher going into his fifth year, 6'2", 225. Really solid leader. Hometown kid, the heart and soul of that defense. And then starting next to him, Devin Jackson, who's going into his fourth year of college ball, 6'2", 230-pounder. The secondary as a whole, it's really hard to pick who's going to start, who you think's going to be the starters. I think for certain you have a bona fide starter in Dylan Thieneman transferring in from Purdue, going into his third year of college ball. Absolute stud, one of the top players in the portal. Standing at, if I could find him here, 6 foot, 207 pounds. Really, really smart player. Makes decisions really quick and dissects things really fast. Going to be a leader in that back end. Kingston heading into year 2, 6'5", 200-pounder. Love to see him get a lot of snaps this year. One thing they lacked a year ago was size. They got some big dudes this year in the secondary. Peyton Woodyard, another second-year guy, 6'2", 205. Probably see some snaps back there at safety. Going over to the corner position, Iffy, probably going to start at one of those corner spots. Second-year player, 6'1", 195. And then you've got, Jalil Florence going into his fourth year, 6'1", 190. Darren Johnson, transfer from Northwestern, fifth-year guy, 5'11", 185. And then Lowley, who, again, I hope I said that right, going into his fourth year, 6'4", 190. So you got some guys with some height this year. I don't think you're going to be seeing many Oregon DBs getting mossed this fall. And then all the young guys that they have in that room, with Offord, McNutt, Finney, and Brew, their composite ranking with, all the recruiting sites averaged out. Naeem Offord, 13th best player in the country. McNutt, 31st best player in the country. Finney, 40th. And Dorian Brew, 64th. And those are all true freshmen. So the Oregon secondary is going to be good for a long time. But just overall thoughts, a lot of youth on the coaching staff. A lot of guys went to the NFL, but they brought a lot in from the portal. They've got some veteran guys. I think the defense with Uiagalelei and Tuioti coming off the edge, they're going to be really, really good. I think it's just a question of, is Dante Moore the guy to lead them to the promised land? Can he do what Dylan Gabriel did a year ago, get the ball where it needs to go, on time and accurate? And he's also mobile, and he can run just like Gabriel. So feeling pretty good about this team. I know they have a big game early at Penn State, but would not be shocked to see them in the Big Ten championship again, and wouldn't be shocked to see them as a top seed once again in the playoff. I think a lot of people are overlooking Oregon after that slashing they took in the Rose Bowl, where it's a lot of talk about, Penn State this, Ohio State that. Don't sleep on the Ducks this year.